and he said, I want to buy Lentegra to acquire you. I understand you're in a 2-year contract and can't break that contract. So I'd like to buy the whole company, all of the LOs in it. And I would like you to grow my national sales force. At the time, they were Village Capital and Investments. We would have many steak dinners to broker that deal. And that did happen, and they did acquire us. And then I spent 12 years with Annie Mac in the national mortgage vice president role.
Welcome to Get Real 411, the podcast where real experts give real advice on all things real estate. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Brad.
Join us as we explore real estate successes and pitfalls through the eyes of our esteemed guests.
Now let's get real.
I am super excited today to sit down with my good friend, Christine Beckwith, who is the CEO of 2020 Vision for Success Coaching and Consulting. She is also a best-selling author, a master coach, a proven sales leader, a mom, and a hilarious human being. So, Christine, welcome to the show.
Yay! I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you, and I'm excited to get into the journey a little bit. So, you've been in the industry for a super long time, much like me. I want to know what got you started in the mortgage industry.
Yeah. When I went to college, I took a job at a credit union, and within a year, they had moved me off the teller line, and I was assisting a female originator, an Italian lady out of Central Massachusetts. And essentially, even though I didn't have the title of loan officer assistant, that was what I was. I think I was called junior LO. And it was ground up. I mean, I'd really date myself to tell you, like, the tasks that I did daily were like stuffing envelopes for written verification of employments with the return envelope in it. And I was scrolling notes into typewriters to fill them out on carbon copied, paper for closings and all the things. So she taught me the trade. And by the time I got done with school, I said, I think I want to be a loan officer. And I had also had been going to school for sports medicine and nutrition, and I got my CNA and I become a physical trainer. And so for the next decade, I was a loan officer. I became a loan officer, and I taught aerobics 14 hours a week. I did pretty much all of that until my late 20s, where I get my first area manager job. But that's how it all started.
So you were the world's healthiest loan officer, because typically us taking great care of ourselves is contraindicated to being a producing originator. But that's amazing. And that's a fun background to have too. I know you carry that through a lot of life even today. We go through seasons and stuff like that, but trying to maintain our health is important. And even like we say all the time when we're talking to other people, you kind of have to give yourself the oxygen mask first before you can help other people. So I really feel like taking care of ourselves is really job number one before we can help to take care of other people. So listen, you've done so much in our industry. Particularly, I would love to hear more about your journey into the sales leadership aspect of the mortgage industry. So you got your shot at a depository, credit union. You got the bug. I was an LOA too. That was my very first job in the industry. I also stuffed envelopes. I remember the no whiteout on the VOE form and the whole
thing. My God, right?
Highlighting what they needed to fill out so they didn't fill out things we didn't want. Crazy. Trans boxes, physical files that were this thick, all of the things that if we started in the 90s, we all remember so well. So you got into the sales side of the business. You moved on from the credit union. When was your first opportunity to take on a leadership role?
Yeah, I ended up having such decent results as an originator. I would go from a team of 20 to a team of 200, and I made it to the top 5. And when I got to that point, that company said, let's give you a branch in Worcester, Massachusetts. And they gave me an office that had 15 offices within the office. And I didn't know anything about recruiting, but they said, go find loan officers. And so I did. And I did. I spent the next year, I filled all the seats, word of mouth. I was really well networked. My whole start in the industry was realtor based. I had been foot to ground, knocking on doors for 25 realtor offices. I was a member of the local board of realtors, and I had just really networked really, really well. And so they gave me the title of area manager. Within a couple of years, that company would get acquired by H&R Block, who was moving into the mortgage space. They owned Option One as well, which everyone knew in the wholesale space. They were retail, and we were outside purchase facing organic, sales. And they were now inside telephonic, lead driven. And I did not see myself staying when they first announced this. And it was hard for me to get my head around moving everybody and relinquishing maybe the roles. I actually convinced them to keep our purchase business and allow us to be the hybrid model. And they were open-minded to it. So that was a victory. And we would go on to have LOs that would grow within our team. And so as area manager, it made way for me to show some of my leadership skills. And I'm going to say I was really young. I think I was 27 when I got that role. But I cut my teeth there. I learned the hard way on a lot of things. But I did learn how to lead people, and H&R Block was such a formidable company. They had tons of internal training and leadership, and I went to everything, and they had a lot of annual meetings and from the larger company. And we were also coupled with Option One, who had incredible marketing and incredible training. And I spent 12 years there. And so I would become a district manager later under them, and I'd have the whole Northeast. And then I became a regional, and I had Chicago and Denver markets and Atlanta, down to Atlanta and the Northeast and Philadelphia. And then I became the senior vice president over the whole national platform for the final 3 years to closure. And so I am out of a job. I take a summer off, and I go take 50 LOs from the local market, and I go to a boutique shop in Boston. It's a brokerage, Lentegra. And I'm there for 30 days, and I get a call from this young mortgage-backed securities commodities broker, Joseph Penabianco, who at the time is 38 years old. He's got 2 kids, a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And he had heard about me at Block. He knew I was now a free agent, and he had Ryan Kuby, who was his president, then call me, who had worked with me at Block, asked if I would have dinner with him, flew to Boston. I had dinner with him, and he said, I want to buy Lentegra to acquire you. I understand you're in a 2-year contract and can't break that contract. So I'd like to buy the whole company, all of the LOs in it. And I would like you to grow my national sales force. At the time, they were Village Capital and Investments. We would have many steak dinners to broker that deal. And that did happen, and they did acquire us. And then I spent 12 years with Annie Mac in the national mortgage vice president role of sales, from 1 branch to 72 branches during my tenure.
The only way that anybody is given those kinds of leadership opportunities is after they've proven that their personal results in sales are extraordinary. And I know from having been in the industry during that time period, how rare it was that a woman, particularly on the East Coast, if we're being honest with one another,
Yes.
would rise to the top in that way, in a sales role, into a leader on a national level. I think it's really extraordinary, but I have to ask, what was really going on for you behind the scenes? What was that experience like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can tell you that when I first became a loan originator, I joined 21 people, and there was 1 woman, and she was not nice to me. And she would brag about having like the executive car pass, which was the prize for being number 1 LO in that group at the time. And she just wasn't nice to me. You could tell she didn't want me there. And it was hard. I can understand today, when you get to the table back then in the 90s and you're there, you definitely don't want anything coming to water down the woman picture of origination. And she was a top producer. So I think she looked at me as like Barbie banker or something and thought, this is going to be a bad look for us. Or she just had kind of the hen in the hen house type of effect. I hate to say that way. I would take that bark and pass from her, and I was determined to do that. I was a competitive person. And so, and I was much kinder to her in the process of all of that. By the way, we ended up becoming friends. And I would move on to the 200 LO company. And I was one of 2 loan officers that were female out of 200 loan officers. It would grow to 13, I think. And then I was the only, out of 210 branch managers, there were 2 females and I was one. And when I became a district manager, there were 14 districts and I was the only female district manager. And when there was regionals, there had never been a woman at a regional and never been a female SVP. In fact, it was newsworthy that I broke the glass ceiling at H&R Block. At the time I become an executive there, they had not had a female running sales in 52 years of their history of their main firm. And they're obviously an international company. So behind the scenes, and it was unprecedented that I would get a job and be acquired for Annie Mac because there were 6,000 out of work executives from the downfall of the 07, 08 markets. Most of those people were men, 97%. There really wasn't jobs. I didn't know if I had it in me to do another like grow from the bottom up motion or request. But what I will tell you is that I experienced, in honesty, and I could say this now because I'm way down the road of my career and I'm outside of direct management, I experienced everything that is described today by women as difficult. I experienced bullying, I experienced sexual harassment, I experienced sexual discrimination, pay discrimination. And I have to tell you, I decided through 32 years of that when to fight and when to stand down. And it was a strategy. Sometimes I knew I had to take my losses just to keep my seat. And sometimes I will say this, I worked really hard to fit in. I had very good guides and boundaries. I didn't, I don't know how candid you want me to be, but I didn't fraternize is the word I'll use with my bosses. And so there was a level of respect that I carried and when I became an executive, I certainly did not. And so I wanted to be able to be, a badass in the boardroom. And I knew that in order to do that, I had to have a really clean reputation. I've written 3 times in my books. I've never been a person that has had relationships inside my workplace. And so it's important to kind of say that because I think there are things I've seen. I saw a lot of women that didn't make it past their seats along the way, who got stuck behind when I went ahead. And I know the mistakes they made. And they're pretty easy things to overcome for women that they don't realize hurts them. And I don't also want to say this is prevalent because I don't know that it is. But I just think I delivered from a place of results. And so in the end of my career, I fought some really hard battles against pay discrimination to the point where I alienated myself in certain areas of companies that I was with. But I was at a point where I was leaving legacy work and I wanted to make some strikes against some of this discrimination to the point where I knew if I left it, the women coming up behind me wouldn't have it as bad or hard.
And that is a perfect segue for us because we've talked so much. One of the reasons we became friends is our shared experiences. A lot of what you described is very, very, very similar to my journey. But another kind of interesting aspect of both of our journeys is we're 2 of the few women I see in our industry who have many men to credit for being supportive of us along our journey. And I love that. And I think that one of the things that we share and a message we've been trying to spread really hard for several years now is let's stop talking about all the things that prevented us from moving forward. And let's share with other women the things that we did that moved us forward so that they can avoid some of the pitfalls. What's your opinion of the state of the industry today, the climate, the world of a female in an origination or leadership role, as opposed to, let's say, I'm going to say when we were coming up in the industry?
First of all, thank you for just bringing this question to this podcast. It is so rare that we have this be shaped in this way where we're bringing visibility to this voice that we now have. We're talking about, we're at the table now, what do we do? And so I have just really, really strongly believed our approach could have been better in the last decade as women strategically. And so one of the things that I did is I did build a women's division of coaching and consulting because there are nuances and there are private conversations that women need to have with each other. Because at the end of the day, we are different creatures. We are carrying a lot of maternal responsibilities within our worlds as daughters, as spouses, as mothers. And we can't not look at the complexity of carrying an executive job while having 4 other huge jobs and roles in life. I think there's a lot of men that have these roles as well. What I'm going to tell you is during my tenure, I saw men that were bullied.
Yep.
I saw men that did not get promoted. I saw discrimination against men. I saw sexual harassment against men from women. I saw things that I would be lying if I said we just owned all of the bad stuff. That just isn't true. And every single opportunity that was bestowed upon me was given to me by a man. And so I can't be part of the movement, and I'm not going to name what that's called today. I'm simply going to say, in the evolution of our equality, I don't like the word equality, because I think that when we start playing for participation awards, even our children, there has to be true sportsmanship, true competition has a winner, has winners. And when we strip that away, we strip away the essence of the fight. We strip away what it feels like to get the reward. I have always been easy to cut the bottom 10% that couldn't make it after a given appropriate period of time, because I was sending a message to the people that could make it that they matter. And so a lot of people frown upon that because they're like, oh, don't put out public sales reports because you're going to show all these goose eggs with this 100, LO pool out of 900 LOs. And it's like, no, like strip out the guys that are under 12 months, but everybody else, let's show those goose eggs, because in sales, it's kind of like there's no crying in baseball. I'm a tough sales leader. My new book that is coming out this fall, I talk about this. I'm a competitor. I didn't want to play from the women's tee. So I've never wanted anything to be given to me because I met a quota. That would not have settled well with me. I wanted to win fair and square. I wanted to start from the same start line. I wanted to prove I could do it. I once had a female regional who my male business partner was working with, and she was one of 6 regional females, one of 6 regionals and the only female. And she thought for sure she was being discriminated against. And when I went to do a branch visit with her, I looked at her numbers. I looked at everything that was going on. I listened to her complaints. And at the end of the meeting, I said, I don't see discrimination here. I see poor numbers. I see poor performance. I see somebody that should be getting their butt kicked right now forward. I don't think this person's going around you. I think they're holding you up. I think you should stop that narrative or you're going to lose. And I think you should get to work and change your numbers. And so that was the type of leader I've been. So today, as a free, retired from direct leadership, it's hard for me to accept the women's stage speaking gigs. And I don't mean to offend anyone that gives me that opportunity, but I just belong in my mind on the stage, because I look sometimes at the billing of the men that are put on the main stage and they don't hold the ranks of positions I held. And, to be over here at the kids' table that we keep setting for the women, like we need, that's not how we're going to get equality. We're going to get equality when we sit in the rooms where the men are, or invite the men into our rooms, and we let them see us and our businesses, our results. We lock arms with them. We fight for them, with them. That's how they're going to bring us up more to the table, in my mind. You're spot on. Here's the deal.
We both believe that the best person for the job should be the person that gets the job. And neither of us over the course of our careers have ever wanted to be given anything because of the fact that it's a good headline. We've wanted it to be given to us because we earned it alongside competitors from every walk of life, and whether they're a man or a woman. The same holds true for the way that we talk to folks that we're mentoring or coaching, and it is be the best person for the job. The essence of sales is competition, whether you're competing with yourself every single day, or whether you're competing within your own company, whether you're competing outside of your company among your peers. In the real world, in real life, outside loan originators don't get paid unless they close loans. And so my my belief is aligned with you in that you're doing a kindness to everybody when you set a benchmark and you hold the line. If we don't have a benchmark, then those who are producing at a high level have little to no motivation to go even above and beyond that. And those who aren't producing at all are given a false sense of the fact that that's acceptable. Not only is it not acceptable in business, but if these individuals are the breadwinners for their homes and their families, they're not making money. And the way that I always felt okay leading in that way was I said, here's what you need to do, but I also said, we're here to teach you how to do it. And so you lay your head on the pillow at night as a leader and you say to yourself, did I give these folks every tool that they needed to be successful? Did I give them candid feedback on the things that I thought would impact them positively if they made adjustments? Did I give them ample opportunity to show up for themselves? And if I answer those things with a yes, then I can feel okay with those tough decisions I had to make. And I can focus my energy leading the people that show up for themselves every single day. Don't you think that's so much more rewarding as a leader?
100%. And I also think that we have to, there's something, it's so cliche when we say, find your voice, find your voice. I don't think I found my most confident voice until I stumbled upon looking in the mirror. And I think we all have a level of self-awareness. I think good leaders have a level of self-awareness. And I had reached a part of my mountaintop in my career where I had the trophies, I had the money, I had the power and prestige, and I still wasn't fulfilled. I had some broken things in my life, and I had had a divorce that was hard when my son was only 8 months old. And I had had things that were happening. My sister, of course, we know, was dying for many, many years and did die. And so in the process of all of that, I went and sought my own counseling and my own coaching and dug deep. I went through the hero's journey and the liar lid, which are both psychological self-development journeys. I bring this up because I had to correct some things about myself that made me love myself more. And when I got to the place where my fulfillment and my happiness were really being derived from living a purpose-filled life every day, not lying, really being willing to show myself in my most honest light, and just come to terms, forgive some people, forgive some things about myself to myself, and move forward, I then found my voice. And what would happen then, and this has been about 5 years now, is that it is really hard to shake me from a confident place. I don't mean this as a flex either. I promise you, I'm trying to give a tip to everyone listening, men or women, both. If you go on this journey, I have people that hate on me on social media. I don't love that I have to have a lot of social media. This is part of the gig. I live with it and I think we do a good job with it. And I'm proud that it works well for my company. But as a person, it's a lot, and it pulls haters. And I don't love that part. I don't love somebody going, oh, Christine, you love yourself, or, you should grow up, or things that I see comments that are made. And I have to decide how I'm going to react. And I can tell you 10 years ago, those comments would have killed me. I would have wanted to delete them. They would have embarrassed me. And somehow they would have seeped into those guilty places and those broken places in my mind. Today, I'm like, oh, no, and I'm going to leave that up because I understand that's a reflection on that person. And so my response to, you love yourself is, yeah, you know what? I do. And I've worked really, really hard to get here. And so you're right. You're seeing me love myself 100%.
You love yourself, but you see yourself.
Yes.
You love yourself.
Yes.
With all of your flaws.
That's
when
right.
you look yourself in the mirror, honestly, and you're able to stop lying to yourself, because it's been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
The love you feel for yourself is the reflection of you as a whole person. And that kind of honesty within the self, I believe it resonates with people because it comes through you. No matter what you do or say, comes from such a deep place of confidence that you earn. We talk so much about, empowering women, standing in a place where you are on a platform in any way. having to own that role when you know even today it's not as prevalent for women. I think it's come a long way, but I don't think we're where we could be. There's that responsibility, right? That others are looking to you to go, oh, is this possible for me? And how did you do it? And how can I do it too? But then also you're a human being through all this. Those haters, which I've also had to experience, those haters can get in your head no matter who you are or where you are. You know, I also suffered a loss late last year, and I'll tell you what, it put me back into a vulnerable state. It almost rewound some of the work I've done, because it puts you in a state where you're very, very, very susceptible to things that you worked so hard to build up coping skills for. And I think that's all part of the seasons of our life. I think that when we can just be and accept the fact that that doesn't work for everybody, but cherish the people that it does work for, cherish those relationships in business and in life where people see us and they genuinely love us too, with all our flaws. I get to see you. I smiled and I laughed when I said you're hard to shake, when you said you're hard to shake, when you're, you know, but that's the essence of you, is that when you love something or you're passionate about something or you believe in something, you believe in it with your whole heart and being. And I love that about you. It's one of the things I respect the most. And one of the reasons you're my friend, because I know.
Seen me.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel like you have seen me.
I have.
I feel like you saw me early on.
Yeah.
And I think one of the similarities with you and I that's very beneficial, and I'd want the listeners to hear this, is that, first of all, losing someone that you're extremely close to, a parent, a sibling, whatever it is, gives you great life perspective. Because listen, I have bad things that happen. I lose a deal here. I did, you know, something happens there. And I'm like, that's not life or death. That's not life or death. The other thing is that my sister's life, you know, was cut short, and she wanted to find her best salvation and her best peace. And through her focus on chasing against a clock that was ticking, an unknown deadline, she would begin to do the work of forgiveness and forgiving herself and all the things that people try to do. And it helped me do those things. In the process of walking her out, I quit smoking because she was suffering. She was a smoker and she needed to stop smoking. And so I said, well, guess what? I'll do that with her. I sit here today, kind of after the rubble of that walk, and I'm a better person for all the things she would go through. And it gave me this end of life vision where I'm way ahead, I hope, of my own deadline in life. But I know that the work she did, I began to do immediately. Because I don't want to be up against the clock like she was. She chased it. And I'm telling you, within the 30 days of her passing, this just angelic form of her would come over her. And she just became this very softer, loving, peaceful, happy, giving person. And she let her light shine. And I knew, and she knew, and the world knew that she was ready to go. And so I share that because I know what you went through last year. We talked through it before, during, after. And I know you were there at the same time for me. And so the greatest takeaway, I hope, from this podcast that people can gather is not only, a career of hard work, a career of competitiveness, but it's the self-work. It's the part where we show up, and in the end, where is your integrity GPS? I'm going to tell you this, you're going to get thrown off your path. People are going to come and do crappy things to you. And if you believe you're driving from a good, God, honest place, which I believe I am today and have been for a long time, it's really hard to throw me off. I can get thrown off, but usually when I get back up, I realize, no, like I'm centered, I'm centered. Like I know right from wrong. I know, I'm not always right. But I know the difference, and that's made all the difference. And I want to just say to you, Jamie, I think you're one of the most incredible leaders. I know I don't need to say this, but I want to say this. You have been on so many stages that I have sat and listened to you and hung on every word that you've spoken. I have notable speeches that I saw you do in Atlanta at EPM, sharing the stage with Tim Grover, which is unbelievable. I saw you in Las Vegas at the Paris, up on stage doing your thing. And I just have to tell you, you always bring such tenacity, such great direction, such love. I know long after I set my hat down, I'm going to be watching you for many, many years more. And I hope you're still calling me in my old lady golfing days and going, girl, you got 5 minutes for me.
Hopefully by then I will be not far behind you and I will be flying to you to jump in a golf cart and golf our day away. You know, I've connected with you since literally minute one of meeting you many years ago. And I'm so grateful for our friendship above everything else. And I feel so honored to get to be a part of your world, the real world, the world that Christine really lives in every day. The mom, the hilarious human. I'm telling you, we're taking our comedy show on the road one of these days.
Oh my God. We're not even leaving any of that goodness here.
I know.
We are so funny. You have no idea.
We got jokes for days. It's another coping skill.
It is. It's very healthy. I strongly suggest.
It is. So I was super excited that you and Laura Brandeo have sort of taken the reins of the Women's Mortgage Network, you know, with AIM, which all of us have been in since the days when there were just a couple of us in a room. And now look at where we are. And I love the direction that we're taking the group in, which is, like you said earlier, women, we have the seat at the table. Yeah. Now that we're not elbowing our way in, how can we help one another? And especially those women that are coming up in the business at a different stage in their career than we are, what can we teach them and show them and help them to now own that seat and do something meaningful with it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really think we've got to get out there and make sure the men in our communities know that we recognize that we have the opportunity to succeed today, and we thank them for their part. We welcome them to help us to continue. We ask them to pick us. I think coming to the stages more vulnerable in this way with men and less against us against them is going to create the inclusion we're looking for at the next level. I also think we got to look back. I think there isn't enough women that go into grade school classrooms, that attend the Girl Scout meetings. Mm-hmm. I have looked around my community. I found one girl community in Maine called the Rainbow Girls Coalition. And it's hundreds of girls that are just, you know, learning business skills. They're in junior high and high school. I found another community of foster teenagers in New Mexico, homeless girls that are being fostered. Last year, I decided that would be where I donated my Clear Boundaries profits from that safety book. And I was able to buy driver's licenses and the education for driver's license for all the girls, and they couldn't afford it, you know, and they want to start driving. And even though they don't have cars, they want their licenses so that they can eventually have jobs. So I think each of us can make a powerful difference, you know, in that. And I'm going to be working really hard this next 6 months to help Women's Mortgage Network, as well as my group, Women with Vision, which I think together can be so powerful. And a lot of the women are in the same both groups. But let's bring it all together and let's see where we can do some philanthropy that makes a meaningful impact. I think we can really, really make a difference.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the more the better as far as I'm concerned. The more together and united we can all be, the further we're going to go. You know, I know you've had many peaks and valleys along your journey in your career and your life. I want to touch for just a moment on that pivotal moment. I know the story, but I want our listeners to hear the story when you started to noodle on the idea that starting a coaching and consulting company and being a coach was the next step for you in that journey, and kind of what those thoughts were and what led you in that direction.
Yeah. The summer of 2006, we shut down H&R Block Mortgage. I was in a boardroom meeting in March that year, and the question I was posed was, how small do we need to get to stay out of the red? And the math equation would bring us to total closure of the mortgage division of H&R Block to spare shareholder price on Wall Street. It was a tough call, and it put me out of work. I spent the summer renting a beach house, and I started just scribbling on paper like my last 12 years success tactics, because I was afraid I would lose them if I got rusty. And the interesting thing about that is when I was done, I realized I had a book. And in writing the book, I saw this trend about who I was. And I thought, my God, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer. And so I ended up buying the domain for 2020 Vision for Success coaching. I didn't bring that website live for 10 years. I paid for the domain annually. And I had the vision. The logo wasn't created, but I had the vision of it. And it just, to me, it was the beginning of the road where we are like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And you have this midlife like realization that, oh, I picked this job in college and I just went with it. And now I'm 30 years down the road. And so the proposition of that excited me. And yet there was the reality of like, am I going to make any money doing that? And so I get the job with Annie Mac, and it's just on the back burner, but I began to accept speaking opportunities. I began to write. And over the next decade, while at Annie Mac, books began to be published. My stages that I would get asked to appear on got bigger. I started getting involved with communities and so on and so forth. In 2017, I let the CEO of Annie Mac know that I was probably going to be leaving to do this. My contract asked for a 365-day notice because I was an executive, and they made me work all of that to the day. And during that year, they did give me the ability to begin to build 2020 Vision. They knew that they were launching me out, and they wanted to leave on good ground. And so there were parameters around how much work I could do to do the build out and still do my executive job. But I was training my replacement and all of those things. I'm going to tell you, they bought the first contract at the annual Annie Mac Summit. At the end of a 3-day event where 600 loan officers were present, they made the announcement as the last act of my departure. And I had spent 3 days breaking bread with everyone. Nobody knew. I was at the height of my popularity there. I really pulled a Seinfeld move because nobody expected it. And it was met with like shock and awe. But I really felt, and I was uncertain. I was really uncertain for all the days leading up to the announcement, because I was jumping kind of out of a building, and I just wondered how I'd land. And I was making big money. I was making, I don't want to say, but a lot, I was making a lot of money. And I just jumped because I thought, if I leave on a good note and I leave with them wanting more, I have this entire workforce that's going to have a popular opinion of me. And that's it. I woke up on November 1st, 2018. The LLC had been filed for 2020 Vision. I literally, this is no lie, went down to my cellar and got a whiteboard. I stuck it on the chair. I wrote 10 names down that I knew in the industry, and I just started making phone calls and saying I opened a consulting firm. By the end of 30 days, I had sold 8 contracts. And the next set of 30 days, I sold a dozen more. So within 60 days, I had 20 contracts. It was enough for me to pay for the expenses of the company and hire 2 people. And the rest is history. I would stack the company as the single salesperson and the single coach for the first year. And when I got to the year mark, I had 13 employees, and I hired my first coach. Today, we have over 30 consultants here. We have over 65 employees nationwide. We're serving thousands of different companies and loan officers and all different kinds of levels of people. And so I don't know, I guess I jumped, and I had some really important people in my life just say, just go, like, just, you don't know, but I know you will do it with all you have. And I'm smart. So I say this, I'm smart. I'm pretty good at, I'll say it a different way. I'm pretty good at examining things. And so I knew my competition. I knew what they were and were not. And 2020 serves like 100 flavors of companies. And so that is very different than most coaching firms. We are customizable. And so because of that vastness in our product line and our delivery, we are one of the most popular choices in the industry for this type of work. And so here I am.
As you should be. And it's funny because, I never believed in coaching for so long. And I know I'm not alone in that, right? Because up until the time that you started 2020, when you looked at the landscape of coaching, there was a pretty important question that a lot of folks didn't ask before they decided to coach with any company at that time. What is your track record? Have you personally achieved the thing that I'm trying to do? Never take advice from someone who hasn't been where you want to go. And I think that's huge. The thing about 2020 that has always impressed me, and it's the reason it's the only coaching company I've ever been a part of, is there is the credibility there and the track record, but it's beyond that. The approach that has been taken is you can serve and support any flavor of company in any size, but you can also support so many different aspects of life and business that there's at least one coach, and sometimes more than one coach, who has a specialty area. And that specialty area is something that serves the whole person. You tuned in early to the conversation that if we're going to be extraordinarily successful in business, that there are parts of our life that we also have to examine, and we have to have credible experts who know how to give us tools to start to do that work. And that work, combined with the tactical business strategies and action items, that together, in my opinion, it builds the whole leader, the whole successful individual who can feel successful in many areas of their world, as opposed to siloing their energies into one place. I still, to this day, and I'm looking at it right now, have my 5-year plan on the back of my door since my very first consulting session, which was probably 2020. And, I'm checking the boxes still today. I don't forget those things that I said I wanted to achieve. And only 30% of them are professional.
Yeah.
When you come to that realization, you understand that you have to do so much work that is unseen work that we do to reach a place where we are confident in being completely ourselves and understanding that not everybody's going to love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say this to you too. There are two types of people with regards to coaching, and it's the person that gets it, that understands for the rest of our lives, we're going to be evolving. We're going to need accountability. We cannot be the only teacher to ourselves. We need other people. I submit myself 6 hours a month to coaching, to being coached. And here we're kind of like, that salon where we do each other's hair. Everybody's like getting coached by each other in our consulting pool. And so I'm going to say this to you. When I started this, I had done all of my competitions coaching, and a lot of them wanted to fit you into the same box. This is our program. This is what we do. This is what you're going to do on Monday. This is what you're going to do on Tuesday. And of course, if people did those things, their production would increase because those things were prospecting type tasks. And so there can be a very basic linear way to better production that's extremely simplified. For me, I felt it lacked intuition into the individual needs. You could take 10 loan officers, and dependent upon their tenure, their track record, their history with whom they were employed by, you're going to find different levels of skills and aptitude for selling. There's a lot of wild, wild west in our industry of people that just could sell well, and then they decided to run a business and they don't know what they're doing. And so when I built 2020, I said, we're going to have financial forensic accountants here. And if they need P&Ls and pro formas and activity trackers, and we'll build the reporting systems, there's going to be people that don't know how to do tech stacks. We're going to have consultants for that. And we went beyond as we listened to the needs and grew each year. We built upon it. And today we have grief counselors, we have health and wellness coaches, we have growth coaches. We have people who focus just on the process and operations. We have people that just focus on leads. It's vast. The menu of services is vast. And so I'm very proud, today it's not even just the businesses that I think we're helping. What's heartwarming for me is the sense of community that we've built, and the strength. We're here in the storm during this tough market. We've kept our lights on. We're out here. We've had to do the same damn things we've taught everybody. We had to shrink our staff at some point. We had to cut our expenses at some point. We shrunk by like 50% in the first year of the downfall. And it was hurry up and get dead asses out of the boats because we're taking on water. And so I will say this, the hardest thing that I've done in my career is build a consulting company in a fishbowl while telling other people how to run, build, and grow their businesses with a no-fail option. Because if you can't do it, you can't tell other people to do it.
That's right.
And if you can't sustain, well, you can't tell other people how to sustain. And so that pressure for me has been something I've risen to the challenge of. I don't mind telling you, when I decided to do this, I had a little talk with myself, and I've never said this before. I'm about to say something I've never said out loud. True story. I said, Christine, there's not going to be a big executive team here at 2020. You're leaving this huge table where you had a lot of collaboration and you had a lot of people looking out for you, and you looked good because you were surrounded by great people, and you're not going to have that. You're not going to be able to be this way, that way, and this way. Like, all your bad habits need to end. All your smart decisions need to be 100%. It's not good enough to have a 70% score anymore. All the tough stuff's going to be on you. And I just had this pep talk with myself where I said, if I don't believe I can take this next step into the CEO role and do that level of operation oversight, I need to grow into it immediately. And I need to leave behind any question I have on the wavering of operating at that level. And when I sat down in November of 2018, I said, let's go, in my head. Like, let's see, can I do it? And I believed I could. And I challenged myself that year as intersections would come. And even in this market where we had to shrink and consolidate, and I had to lay people off and do tough conversations, I knew everyone in this organization was looking to me as to how we would go forward. And so making the tough calls, having the emergent meetings, not having a board that I had in previous companies to tell me that it was needed, but knowing it was needed, I did gain confidence in the last 5 years. Like, yeah, I do know how to build companies. I do know how to run companies. I am doing it. And the wonderful thing, and I'll kind of end it here, is that I have this enormous fan base of people that have worked for me in the past, and they're cheering me on. You'll find them in the comment sections. You know, they're people that worked for me 25 years ago when I had that first branch, and people that worked for me 20 years ago when I had my first district. And they're like, go, Buffy, go. Like, they're watching me take that next step, and they want to believe that that leader they believed in is still the leader today. And so I take that as such a huge opportunity and such a huge responsibility to continue to show them like what it looks like to be brave and tenacious and all of those things. And so I don't know, but as I turn 55 this November, I hope I'm showing the world how to show up. Like, if you want to show up, and, you know, just to challenge yourself. And I'm probably going to be that gritty 80-year-old woman, I'm assuming. But that's it. You're one of them. You know, you're just like me. You're just like me. So let's keep going. Let's keep fighting.
Absolutely. All right. I have to send you my curveball question. You're made for questions like this because of who you are as a person. But I ask every single guest this question. Knowing everything you know today, if you could go back and talk with 20-year-old Christine, what would you tell her?
I would say stay longer in the broken places and see if you can make them work. Because I ran in my lifetime from all of the troubled places when the first signs of breakage occurred. When I was hurt, I was stubborn and I wouldn't let that person hurt me again. And that affected 2 marriages, which I consider, you know, fails on my report card that didn't need to be failures, either one of them, I don't think. And I say this with all the love in my heart for my partner who I've been with 17 years, Corey, who's been amazing. That being said, I just truly believe that if I had it to do over, I would try harder to let time pass, wounds heal, and keep going forward. I always wanted a perfect score at some point, and when blemishes and scars would come, I would drive away from it. And today I'm not doing that, and I haven't been doing that for a long time. So today I am scarred, and I am driving from a place where my wounds have been shared and shown, even going through my sister's grief publicly. And I think because of that, I'm giving a lot of other people permission to understand that we are going to be imperfect in our wins. In our wins, we're not going to win pretty, and so, yeah, that's it.
I think the most important thing about having the gift of influence of other people is giving them permission to not be
100%.
perfect and showing them that we aren't perfect either. Well, thank you, my friend, my dear, dear friend. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to get it out. So I want to thank you once again for spending time with me today and sharing your story with our audience.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Get Real 411 is hosted by Brad Rice and Jamie Cavanaugh, produced by Stuart Jellin, and recorded live from the AmeriFund Home Loan Studio in Simi Valley, California. You can learn more about the show at getreal411.com and watch full episodes on YouTube. If you're interested in being a guest on Get Real 411, email booking@getreal411.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.